Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we are very lucky to have Genevieve Lecoq here to talk to us on her experience in drag and her history as drag queen, and answer some questions those of us who are brave enough are never really brave enough to ask. So I am super excited to have Genevieve here, and I'm really grateful that she could take time out of her busy schedule to attend for us. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Genevieve, our esteemed guest speaker, and let her take the floor.
Well, hello, Tucks Up and Out. Thank you for having me as your host for this very much anticipated discussion. As you've heard, my name is Genevieve Lecoq. I've been a drag queen for 14 years now. So in other words, I'm 1 year younger than Tucks Up and Out. So I'm 14 years, and it's now been a very interesting journey for me to year. I'm a MC, I'm a host and a performer, and I've built a nice following over time of really fabulous people that's so kind to attend our events that I either perform at or that I'm hosting. So yes, a few mentionables in my career as a drag queen was definitely March to the Constitutional Court when Contra-Lisa in 2012 wanted to amend the Bill of Rights to have sexual orientation and gender identity, well, actually just sexual orientation removed from the Bill of Rights. So we held nationwide protests. We marched on the Constitutional Court. So that was a really awesome experience to see people pull up and go to the Constitutional Court to fight for our rights. So that didn't happen. They didn't remove it from the Bill of Rights. And although I think the queer community is still under a lot of scrutiny and under attack, I think there's also been some grounds made to progress us and to have queer culture become more mainstream. My second event in my life that I would, as a drag queen, like to note is when I met Justice Edwin Cameron, an absolutely inspiring person that played a fundamental role in the writing of our Constitution as well. He was a really kind man that I met at an event of UJ, actually. I've been working with a few student organizations, and it was a colloquium for trans and homophobia in South African schools. This is quite a few years ago. I met Justice Edwin Cameron. He was the guest speaker for the event, and I met him, and it was really spectacular to meet him. And after that, he extended an invitation to give me a tour of our beautiful Constitutional Court. So I marched up to it, and I had Justice Edwin Cameron give me a tour of the art collection in the Constitutional Court. If you ever do have time, go. It's a beautiful experience. There's one portrait that haunts and inspires me, and it's the blue dress portrait. It was actually redone again. Go and find out what the story is behind the portrait. But that's some of the mentionables so far in my career. So I think without further ado, I'm really excited to answer the questions of the submittees.
Yeah, so first of all, I just wonder if you could speak to a little bit about your knowledge of the history of drag in South Africa and your experiences in terms of stigma and sort of, words escape me, your experiences of stigma and progress as a drag performer in South Africa, and like how long have you been working for and things like that. So
okay, well, basically you'll find that drag has very deep roots in South African culture. There's always been a divide, unfortunately, where you have your white queens and then queens of color and black queens. It's never really amalgamated well together. But one of the very strong elements that brought South African drag to where it is today is definitely the pageant culture. So it's still very much alive. It's still very much active. I know that Miss Drag SA has announced their finalists for this year. There's a few girls that I know that entered. I'd like to give a shout out to Lola Pyramid. That's one of the contestants in that. I know you're going to slay, Queen. And so yeah, pageantry has played a really big part in drag. I think with RuPaul's Drag Race now, pageantry is challenged to a very big extent because of the ostentatiousness of American drag. So American drag is a much larger scale. I think one of the questions also asks relating to that, so I'm not going to go too much into that, but you'll find that your pageantry culture played a very big role in that. Also, if you go a bit more to international roots, the Stonewall Riot was started by drag queens. They were the only ones that literally and figuratively had the balls to go and fight the system. So drag queens has always played a pivotal part in standing up and being outspoken about gay rights, not just nationally, but internationally as well. So I think the relevance of drag has become so much more prominent in these days, and that drag queens are more than just performers and personas, but actually movers and shakers and change makers. And that's what we need more of in the challenging times of today.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
If you want to, in Cape Town, the pageant culture is still very much alive. You will almost every weekend, you will find a pageant or two taking place. I know that in the past, Miss Gay Western Cape, that's a very well-established pageant. They've had RuPaul's Drag Race queens actually come through to host their events. They've had Jujubee, which I met, crazy batshit. I love her to bits. She's shorter than me, but she has bigger feet than I do. So that was quite fun. And so I met her. And then I also know that Shangela was also one of the hosts. And then Latrice Royale was also a host. I didn't meet her, but I get to see her perform. And that is one fierce queen. So I know that when she put the poster out for the Miss Drag Gay Western Cape, there was a lot of international attention that was drawn to that, where they basically said that they feel that South African drag queens are very basic, which was a very hurtful thing to hear. This is very old, but I think it's interesting to see how people react internationally to South African drag. And I think what's important to understand is that we don't always have the resources or the money to get up and be all fabulous and all that stuff. And a lot of your young drag queens don't have the proper equipment to do it. So you have a lot of queens out there that's doing their best and working with what they have. They're not as fortunate as me and many other drag queens to have over a couple of years build up a dowry of drag things. So I think that's important to note that, you know, wherever drag is, we should appreciate it for what it is. And, you know, as a drag queen, you are an activist by default without even trying. So when you step out in your heels and you put on your mascara and your lashes, you're an activist and you're standing up for queer rights by going out and being open and being out. So I think that's a very important role in visibility. You know, people would like for us a lot of times not to be visible and not to want to see us and not want to have to deal with queer issues, health issues. And I think it's really important that visibility is so important, because out of sight, out of mind is so horrible. We need to be seen, we need to be appreciated. And I don't think it's just about tolerance. You know, tolerance is such a one-way street where it's like, okay, I can tolerate you, but the ideal is that we want to have it go beyond that, where there's actually a sense of affection and appreciation. And of course, God damn it, some joy and laughter. So it's important that we can grow it to that, where people really come to understand and appreciate the art of drag for what it is, that it's there to lift your spirits, it's there to make you feel good. And if you're going into the change of wanting to become a drag queen yourself, really to appreciate the change that you go through in terms of the transformation. That's personally for me one of the biggest things that I've experienced is the transformation process. I don't know, somewhere between the lashes and the heels, magic happens. And that's when Genevieve Lecoq comes to life. And I feel very much it's a different person from who I am as a boy. It's a different linguistic set, it's different body language, it's completely different clothes and attire. So I think it's important that you can distinguish between your two personas and keep them healthily balanced. So yeah, that's just what I can say about that for now.
That was awesome. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to dive into the questions that were sent through to our Instagram. I'm really excited for us to get to look to
Oh
hear your
yeah.
answers. So the first question is, how is drag culture in South Africa different from, say, drag culture in the US?
Okay, this is extremely relevant. There's been news articles in mainstream media about it. And what's happening is you'll find people watching Drag Race and then they go out to a club or a bar or a queer event or something and they see drag queens there. And all of a sudden this queen is, you know, she knows everything about drag and she's going to tell you how you should be. So, you know, that's, I feel it does undermine a lot of the process of South African drag queens. Like I said earlier, is myself and many other queens aren't always in the financial position to buy the nice stuff, to buy the wigs by Vanity that cost 4,500 Rand and to have them shipped from Australia, or to get stuff quickly from China and America. I mean, firstly, your accessibility to drag attire is so easy. I mean, it's a click and it's delivered to your door, and it's difficult here for us. We don't always have access. I mean, I can give you an example. I'm going to show you my favorite shoe because I'm wearing little platform shoes today, but I'm going to show you my favorite shoes, and I think it can serve as an example of what you really have to go through to get certain things. So I'm just going to grab them here. So this is my favorite shoes.
Ooh, gorgeous. Those are some kick-ass heels.
Yeah, these are my little babies. So there's only one company in the world that makes them. It's called Pleaser. And they're in America, you have to import them. And with all the import taxes and everything included in that, and a very long wait for customs to clear it, it's like 3,500 Rand. So it's really expensive. I saved up for them because, you know, when you put on those heels, honey, the world is your oyster.
Exactly.
So it's really amazing to do that. So, you know, you'll see a lot of the queens on RuPaul's Drag Race actually wear shoes like this. But you don't appreciate, firstly, how difficult it is to walk in them. Once you've become used to it, it's like, you know, walking on a little block, and you're taller than everybody, and you can spot all the queers all over the event and see that one is cute or not. So, you know, South African drag, very useful. Yes, you can note that. So for South African drag, we don't have the accessibility to other things like your American queens or even European queens have access to. And I think it's important that people understand we are not America. And I think the fundamental difference between us and America is that America has a very vivid mainstream industry for drag queens. We don't. We have a minuscule industry, and the competitiveness between drag queens to get the little gigs that they are is very, very strong. So you can ask a lot of drag queens I've seen recently. I mean, you can flip a 5 Rand coin and another drag queen is going to pop out somewhere. So there is a lot of young, up and coming, very talented young queens that's there. And they're all taking on the task of learning how to become their ulterior personality and to really embrace that. But I think that's the main difference between America and us, is that we don't have such a strong enough industry that actually makes enough money for us to get nice gigs and to be paid properly, to be able to buy all the hair and all the, you know, nice things that go with it. So I think that's a fundamental difference between us and America. I mean, if you work out what they get paid for gigs, the makeup, the makeup is crazy.
If I think about makeup, what I buy as makeup is expensive. Like to get costume makeup, good quality costume makeup, and like stuff that'll actually stay on your face, it's expensive. Like
it is.
There is like, so I think there's an expectation of you must have this, and no, you mustn't. Like queens should be able to do what they're comfortable with and what they would like to do with whatever funds they have. So I think it's really important you brought this up.
I think the one thing that is really pertinent is, firstly, I think drag queens should stand together more. There's a lot of competitiveness and a lot of bitchiness between drag queens, which is really unnecessary. And people that meddle with drag, that just want to control drag queens for the sake of profit, and for commercial ventures. Yeah, I've had to do with many of these people that really abuse drag and pay us peanuts and expect us to show up, you know, looking like it's the RuPaul's Drag final. In that sense, I think it's important that we, as queens, develop a sisterhood, that we really start looking after each other and give each other guidance, but not only guidance in the transformation process, but to the emotional aspect of it as well. If I just take what quarantine did and the effect that's been having on people, especially on our drag queens and on queer people, you know, it makes it really difficult. So with a sisterhood, you can look after each other, you could be there and be caring for each other. And I think that's one of the most fundamental things that I'd like to see develop more in the drag culture.
Okay. So the next questions, do you have any, like, what are your favorite makeup removal tips? Like, say.
Well, there's a few. I'm going to give you the old school way how a showgirl removes her makeup. I'm not going to do it, so don't be crazy or anything.
No, we wouldn't ask you to do that.
No, babe, I've sat for hours. I'm not taking it off now.
Yeah,
so
no,
one of the
not.
one of the old school moves that you can follow is get yourself a nice big tub of aqueous cream and an old towel, and you basically take a dollop of cream, wipe it all over your face, and then take the towel and gradually wipe it off. So basically, if you massage it, it would soften all the makeup and you'd wipe it off. And then you would wash your face a couple of times with a facial wash just to get the stuff off around the eyes, the mascara, and the eyeliner. So that's a surefire way. If you want to make sure you get that shit off, that's the way you're going to do it, girl. So that's one of the ways. So always there's also the makeup wipes option. I've become really good. I can clean my face with like 2 or 3 makeup wipes, because the thing is, if you go bush and just grab a wipe every time, that pack of wipes are going to last you 1 or 2 faces. So the makeup wipes is also an alternative for that. But it's not always it doesn't always remove everything as you'd like to. It's a bit more gentle than maybe using the towel and the cream. And of course, then you've got the conventional way of going with a cotton swab and using makeup remover. But drag queen makeup is so thick, you can't really go the usual way of like a lady would wear makeup. You can't apply that to a drag queen because we take our makeup on and it's powder upon powder and contouring and everything that's there. There's so much happening, my dear, that you've got to make sure that you really take it off properly and look after your skin. Otherwise, you know, you're going to get zits and breaks out. You know, it's not that.
Yeah. Okay. The next one is, on average, how long does it take you to get into full drag?
Wow, that's a very interesting question because it gets asked so much. People imagine that you just wake up looking like this, and God, I wish I did. But the transformation process is anything from maybe an hour and a half for quick drag to about 3 or 4 hours if I'm doing a really big event where I've got lots of costuming and it's stressful and there's a bit of anxiety. Then I like to take my time. And what I usually suggest if you're getting done is rather get done at your venue, because you're there and you can relax then, and then you take your time. If you know you're not quick with your makeup, allow yourself 3 hours. Don't do it in a rush. You want to look beautiful afterwards. So make the time and don't rush yourself. So the process, you can say, to be safe, is 2 to 3 hours about.
Okay, wow. That's really intense.
Yeah. It's intense, my dear, because your biggest part that you would start with is the closure of your brows. So that you have to do when your skin is completely dry. And I do mastics and bostic. I do a few layers of each to really get the eyebrows down. So because obviously if you don't do your eyebrow higher, then your eyes become really small and you don't get the proportions of the face that you'd like to achieve. So, you know, I'm going back to one of the words of RuPaul's Drag Race and saying proportionizing, proportionizing, proportionizing. That's got everything to do with your makeup as well as with your other items when you get done. So I'm going to show you 2 items of mine that I'm not wearing today, but it's 2 little secrets that go into getting your silhouette shaped as you'd like to. So I'm going to move the camera back a bit. I need a bit more space to show you this. So let's get this out. So this is my hip pad.
Okay. Wow.
So you got two hip pads, and you basically would put them on your tuchus here, and they would give you more of that hourglass figure. So you know, it's in the shape of Africa almost. So we call it Mama Africa, Mama Africa. So and then you can see also in thickness, it gets really thin to the side here. So you can really have that apple bottom, you know, you really want to make it pop. And so this is one of the secrets. It's a bit of a thing to be able to make your own hip pads, but I've decided that I will be giving a personal makeover to one lucky winner from Tucks Up and Out. So I'm going to ask everybody to follow me on Instagram and to go and follow me on Facebook as well, and inbox me. And then I'm going to choose one candidate, and I'm going to give you a full drag makeover. Yes, the full deal. I'm going to show you everything.
Incredible.
So I'd be willing to do this for Tucks Up and Out. I'm very full of shit if it comes to this, but because Tucks Up and Out is such an awesome organization, I'm going to do that for you.
We're so grateful, Genevieve. That's amazing. We'll definitely be advertising that on our socials. You heard it here first, people. So you get extra time. Okay.
I see there was a few questions that pops out. I saw the one. I saw, how do you treat a 5 o'clock shadow? So that's important when you do your basic face. If you've got a very big or a very strong blue beard that might be showing, or a 5 o'clock shadow, then it's best that you use a color corrector. Depending on your skin tone, there is certain colors that you can use, like orange or green to cover red, or there is color correctors. And a color corrector would be your base that you would put on before you put on anything else, and that would help with the not with a 5 o'clock shadow, with a blue beard showing. But for 5 o'clock shadow, it's a bit difficult. I've got some of my fellow queens that got bad 5 o'clock shadows, girl, and they can't help it, because the thing is, if you shave and there's a lot of time that elapses that you in drag, your beard is going to grow. It does happen. So you know, the realness fades the more time goes by. So that's why I love that we're doing on this format, because I look flawless. Even if there's a hair there, you won't know. So yes, the 5 o'clock shadow is a difficult one, but the best is I shave literally until I bleed. So that's literally what I do, is I shave and I shave and I shave until all the hair is gone, and you run your finger and you can feel that it's nice and smooth. You have to shave against the grain as well, which is quite painful, and you can get a rash from that. But then again, who's going to see the rash? You're going to be pasting on 2 tons of makeup, so nobody's going to see it, honey.
And waxing? Do some queens wax?
I would not suggest facial waxing. I would maybe say waxing on the eyebrows, but what happens with waxing is it actually extends and stretches the skin. So when you get older, you're going to look like a checkers bag.
Okay, yeah, no, not doing that.
On the face, it's really painful. It's really painful waxing on your face. I won't suggest it.
Okay, so the next one is, what are the correct pronouns for a drag queen? I feel horrible for not knowing.
I think it's a very much debated topic. And for me, I'm going to use the words of Karl Lagerfeld, the great designer. And he said, boy, girl, whatever. And I think in terms of that, it's not ignorant. It's more giving a fluidity to that thing. And I think in the end, it depends on each drag queen, how they wish to be addressed. And I don't think just for drag queens, I think for queer people in general. You know, like you would for a trans boy, you would call him he. They would usually prefer that. But I see the trend is that there's a lot more pansexual or asexual people coming out and being visible. And for them, they'd like to be addressed as they and us and ours. So I really think it depends for each person. But for the majority of drag queens, she is okay. You know, think to the one side, the majority of your drag queens are gay men that transform for either entertainment purposes or just for fun. And then you want to be seen as a girl. So then her and she would be appropriate.
Okay. Okay, so the next question is, so my friend wants to do drag. I'd love to help, but they have no idea where to begin. What are your suggestions for people starting out with drag, doing drag?
Drag is challenging. And I think what you need to accept is if you're looking for a quick fix just to change into drag, then I'm sure you can find somebody that will put you in drag. But drag is a journey. Drag is a journey of your soul. It's a journey of your character. And you will really get tested on who and how you are in that persona. So to start off drag, I would say one of your most important aspects is to get the makeup down. You know, if you really want to do drag and you've got an interest in it, you've got to know how to do your own makeup. Don't become dependent on people. So you can't do an event and because you can't do your own makeup. So I think it's important that you get the makeup down. There is millions of tutorials that you can go and watch online. In my days, darling, YouTube was for music videos. So it wasn't for tutorials and that kind of thing. So those days of where you can go onto a Patrick Star or a Miss Fame or a Jeffree Star page and go and check a tutorial, those days, it's changed. So it's more accessible now and it's easier. So I would say start working on your makeup and start cultivating the look you want to have. Do you want to have a longer face? Do you want to change your face? Do you want to go abstract? Do you want to go fishy? Do you want to go surreal? There's so many options that you can. My face always looks the same, and that's why people recognize me, is because I've got a consistent look that I do, and I believe that does advance building your brand and getting out there. So I would say if you're starting out, start with a makeup. And start playing with cheap makeup. Go to Chinatown and get the cheap stuff, because you're going to be messing around a bit, and it's okay to get your hands dirty and, you know, not to look fabulous the first time around, but you can play around and hone in on your skills and make them better over time. So the makeup would be the first thing, and then you know, gradually you can start building up a wardrobe, because you're going to need shoes, you're going to need hair and all that stuff. So it's quite a process to go with. I'm not going to discuss it further because this would go into the role of a drag mother, and I know that's one of our other questions. So for now, I'm going to freeze it where it is, honey.
So the next one is, do all drag queens have a house mother?
That is a very important question. So a drag mother is a very old cultural reference. I am a drag mother myself. My star child, you must have heard of or seen her or met her. Her name is Riri Rouge. So that's my star child that I raised from coming in as a boy to turning her into a drag superstar. It's been a really interesting journey as a mother to see that. But the role of a drag mother has very old referencing, and I think modern drag mothers handle things differently. So in the old days, if you wanted to do drag or you wanted to come into the drag community, you'd have to find a drag mother that is willing to take you into their house. And if you, I don't know if you've seen the documentary Paris is Burning.
I have not. It's on my to watch list.
Oh no, there is a gap in your education, girl.
So for those who have not, like me, who haven't seen it, would you tell us something about it as it's to do with the point?
So that's basically in New York, the drag and queer scene of colored and black people. There's some white queens that feature in it. But basically what would happen there is a lot of times those kids that's coming to look for a drag mother are literally looking for a house to stay, because they were kicked out, they were rejected from their families, and they're out on the street, and they're literally looking for a mother to look after them. So I think in modern day times it has changed a bit. I know that there's still some drag queens that do assist people in that being thrown out and being outcast. But the role of a drag mother would have been in the old days where she would take you in and you would be her apprentice, my dear. You would zip up and you would lift up and you would tease and you'd do everything to make her look good for her event. And gradually, as you would earn her respect, you would be given the opportunity to then make use of her facilities and her things to turn yourself into a drag queen, but under her guidance and guide. So the role of a drag mother is really there to give guidance to you in this process of becoming, whatever type of drag queen you want to be, and to give that guidance. Because I mean, there is so many new queens that I know that's out there, and they don't know where to start. It's so difficult. So I think that's also part of the sisterhood that's important, is to extend that knowledge that you have. There's two things in the world that really carry value at this stage, and it's time and knowledge. So if we can extend the time and we can extend the knowledge to other new queens, we can really make the drag culture grow more. So a drag mother is important. I think there is a lot of young people out there, especially for millennials, that it's all about instant gratification. So they don't want to go through the motions to earn something. They want somebody to put them in drag, but they can have a good time and they go back to normal the next day. So for a lot of drag queens, it's not like that. You want to become an entertainer, you want to build a brand and build something out of that. So a drag mother plays an important role in the future. So how you would approach somebody if you want them to be your drag mother is you would obviously spot a queen that you find inspirational, or you would find that you like their style or their way or their behavior. And you would then approach that person and say, listen, I'm new on the scene or new on the drag scene, and I really want to try out drag. I've got a few things of my own or I don't. And will you be willing to assist me? And then that queen can decide if you are the type of queen that she'd want in her house. I'm very fortunate that I have quite a few kids after 14 years that's out there and that's doing really well for themselves. So you would approach somebody and ask them. I don't think it's inappropriate. I don't think it's something bad to do. Approach drag queens, and most drag queens are approachable, and go and ask them. Ask them if they'd be interested in doing that for you.
Okay. So the next question's a little more serious, and it's, do you think it's dangerous existing as a drag queen in South Africa?
I've seen, actually processing so much when you ask that question, because I went through so many occurrences in my life where my safety, my physical safety was at stake. Never mind emotional and things like that, where my physical safety was at stake. So for me, the rule is if I go out and drag, I'm never alone. I always have at least one person with me. And, you've got to make sure that your transport and stuff is so that if an event or something goes in the direction where it's aggravating or it's not there, that you can get out and leave on your own terms. I think in general, going out to places, it's a safe thing to do. If you're going out to mainstream heterosexual places, I can promise you there's going to be an issue of some kind. Most of the time, people receive it very well. If you're there on your own, it's going to be difficult. But if you're part of a group, then to attack and isolate you is not so easy. So then your chances of having problems is much less. But I mean, I can give you an example for me. That's something that happened last year. I think it was in November. My God, it's almost a year ago. Can you believe it? I went to a disco party in Sandton. It was called Glow at the Reserve in Sandton, and a really stunning party. I was a judge for the Who's the New Drag Queen competition, and so we did it. I had two friends with me, fortunately, and as I drove back off Grayson onto the N1, I was pulled over by the traffic police. And what actually happened is that that officer's brain broke. His brain didn't register what was going on at that moment. And when I got out the car, I was like 2 feet taller than he was, and he was flabbergasted. So what happened is that they were obviously joking around with me a bit, and they put me on the spot. But eventually, I had to twerk to get away, which felt really weird. And that is like stuff like that where, I can be honest that I did have a drink. I did have a drink that evening, and they were threatening to put me in jail because of the one drink I had. And obviously, you realize that you're on your knees in front of the authorities because I had to be honest with that officer and say to him, look, if you're going to put me in jail, you know what's going to happen to me is I'm going to get raped and probably murdered. And that is a reality. Even if we look at colored and black lesbians, how much murder and rape they go through in terms of corrective rape, safety is a very real concern. So your best thing is always numbers. Have numbers. Don't be on your own. Don't go and provoke people. Don't go and tease straight men. And if they come to you and they make advances and they try and grab your ass and stuff like that, refrain from interacting with them because they want to cause a commotion. They want to hurt you. So I would say safety and numbers and respect other people, you know, just respect that as well. So in terms of safety, it's a reality. And we have to look after ourselves and we have to take accountability. For me, what I've got to really ensure that is I've got a membership to an organization called Project Help. And what you do, it's a panic button on your phone and it tracks your geolocation. And you press the panic button and within minutes, you will be assisted by private security that's not the police. So that's one of the ways how I literally go about, you know, looking after my physical safety is have somebody that can come out for me when the police wouldn't be there, or I'm on my own, or I'm under threat. So that is one of the things that I also do to keep myself safe.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I can understand why that would be really painful. Okay, our next question is, do you think that there is a future for drag kings to grow in popularity?
I want to assume that that question comes from a drag king. I don't know if you could see.
So, unfortunately, all of our responses are anonymous. So it's like, what questions would you want to ask?
Not
so
a problem.
We don't know who it's from.
When I was in Cape, I had a lot of my drag and gay growing up. I had in Cape Town, so it's only about 6 years that I'm in Pretoria now. And I met a group of girls that would then do drag king performances, and their whole process of transformation is so much different than for a drag queen. You got stacking and packing and how to make a beard and all those things. It was really so interesting to see how they do things. And I definitely think that there is. I think that there's still a lot of stigma around drag kings. And people are like, yeah, I don't want to see a woman dress as a man and see them perform. But that's just prejudice. And that's really not giving opportunity to other people to express their inner selves and their creativity. So I definitely think that there is. I think it's important, again, visibility. People are much more used to maybe seeing a drag queen, but a drag king is something that they don't always seem to understand. But what I can say about that is that a lot of people didn't understand drag. So if they can understand drag now, why can't they understand drag kings? So I love drag kings. Drag queens and drag kings can have so much fun together doing duets where the drag queen is the girl and the drag queen is the man. So I think it's really fabulous. And I think it's beautiful to see that craft develop. So I think there is a future. Be visible, get out there, and develop your brand.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a question in the chat, and obviously, if this is triggering for you or you don't want to share it,
no, go for it.
Surrounding your trauma, you obviously don't have to answer it. I would never try not to ever put anyone in a situation where they would feel uncomfortable and that they had to answer.
No, fire away. Fire away.
This person Ruben says, to be honest, I think it goes unacknowledged how much the police play into homophobia. Have you ever been seriously harassed?
Oh, yes. There has been a few instances where it has happened. And I could remember specifically one incident where I felt really very vulnerable. I lived in Cape Town. Crew Bar used to be where I was manager, hostess, and performer. And obviously, when you work there, you work really odd hours. So I lived in Garden, but I worked in Waterkant, close to Cape Porter. So what would happen is I would work and I would do my thing, and then I would finish my shift around like 4, 5 in the morning. You know, it's the hour of the birds. And then I would get a taxi, and the taxi would take me home. And actually what happened is that the taxi driver started hitting on me, but like very badly. Like he was insinuating that he wanted to have sexual intercourse with me. And so what happened is that actually I left my keys at home with my housemate, and I couldn't get in. So I had to then call him up and get him to open up the gate for me. And I realized that I'd have to stand at the gate, and this guy was going to be waiting there for me, and he's not necessarily going to let me go, and he might harass me. And it really came close to that. So fortunately, the apartment block next door, I knew the security guy. So I made him stop there, and I made like I was going in, and then obviously the security guard came out, and then the taxi driver left. But that was a very close brush I had with something really bad happening. I've had some other things happening, but I prefer not to talk about them. But that was one instance that I would say that it was a reality flash for me, where I had to really think about my personal security, that it's not a joke, and that homophobia is very much a reality, but also drag phobia. Drag phobia is a very big reality. And I think the people that are the biggest transgressors of that is other gay men. It's not usually straight people. It's other gay men. The prejudice within the community is a tough one. So I think in that instance, it's very important to, again, take care of your own safety, have safety in numbers, and use your brain. If you can see somebody is becoming funny with you and they're trying to isolate you out or do funny things with you or grope you, you know, take action to get yourself out of that situation, because you can't allow that abuse to continue there. You have to take a stand.
Okay, so the next question I want to get to all the Instagram questions, and then we will get to the questions in the chat. And this is, has anyone ever ended a relationship with you after finding out that you're a queen? So.
Oh my God, I saw this question and I was like, I'm so glad somebody actually asked it. I mean, if you look at drag queens in America, they all have boyfriends and there's no issue about it. But I can be dead honest with you that, yes, there's been several problems with that. And I would go out, I never meet somebody as a boy, as in drag. I would meet them as a boy, and then I would gauge how they would have the ability to accept me being a drag queen. Because the reality of the story is that most people don't have the capacity to accept it. Most gay men are firstly way too insecure, but they're way too insecure to take the demeanor of a drag queen as part and parcel of me being a boy. So in that instance, I've had to let go of some really awesome guys that I've met because they can't deal with me being a drag queen, because their opinion is that I don't want to date a woman. And I said, but I'm not a woman. I'm an artist. I'm an actor. I'm an activist. It's not how I sleep and live. I'm not transgender. I'm not a transvestite. I'm a boy that at times turns into a drag queen. So yes, it's been there. But what I can say from my past relationship experience is that the younger generation, like you guys, like millennials, are actually so much more open-minded to it. And I think that's part and parcel why I'm attracted to younger guys, is because they're so much more open-minded. In actual fact, it's like what I said in the beginning, it's not just about tolerance. It's about accepting and embracing it and really loving it and making it a feature in your life or feature in your relationship or in your life. So I think in that instance, the younger generation is much more open-minded, that they would actually embrace it or become a drag queen as well. So that is the one thing that I can say, is that your older generation of gay men would be prejudiced. And they would be drag phobic. They would say, it's okay and all if I see a drag queen at an event, but I don't want it in my life. I don't want it in my house. It's not something that I want. So unfortunately, that narrow-mindedness is still there.
Okay. Someone's asked, where does drag phobia come from, do you think? As they've noticed that masculine expression on apps like Grindr is worshipped and often feminine expression is rejected?
Well, yes. Unfortunately, your mask for mask aspect is something for gaming that is a reality. You've got to be muscular, you've got to be pretty, you've got to be thin, you've got to look like this, you've got to be able to do that, and all those things that go with that. And I mean, I've had Grindr before. I don't anymore because it's just, I've tired of it, and I think it's something that's not relevant for me anymore. But I've seen quite a few transvestites as well as transgender people on Instagram, my God, on Grindr. But it's definitely still at that stigma where drag phobia is part internalized homophobia, because what you'd find, a lot of those masculine guys are the biggest queens of them all, my dear. They are the biggest queens you will get. And because they don't feel comfortable with their feminine side, they turn it over into prejudice. And that's where drag phobia, in my opinion, gets its origin from, is that you have guys that is not willing to accept their own inner femininity, and that it's okay to express it. And that it's okay that you can be feminine, you can flap your hands, and you can talk like this and be fabulous and fill up all your fabulousness. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I think in actual fact, my answer to that question would be is that every person, irrespective of their gender, of their sexual orientation, their gender identity, should try drag at least once in their life. Because it's really going to put you in a position where you're firstly going to understand what we go through, but secondly, you're going to learn so much about yourself. You're really going to start seeing an inside of your character that you never knew about, and you're going to find strength. So I think it's a very valid experience that every person should at least once in their life have a proper drag experience and feel how it feels, and to embrace that femininity and that there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's a pre-programmed kind of mindset for masculinity. Is toxic masculinity is to be against femininity. So I think that's a really important aspect to address, as well as try drag, go and see that other side, and don't be afraid of your femininity.
Okay, and then the last question, just to wrap up before we go over time, is we're in Pretoria. Would you recommend that someone interested in drag goes to get a better idea of the culture?
Well, there's three places where you can go. So I'm going to shout out to each one of them. The first one would obviously be ETC in Centurion. I don't know if most of you were probably there, or you must know about it. ETC is in Echo Park by the Checker Center. It's a local pub. There's a lot of drag queens that hang out there. So if you want to interact with drag queens and you want to meet some drag queens, that would be the place to go. A lot of them are my children as well. So if you mention my name, they would probably know who I am. I'm the big bitch. Then there's also Beefcakes. Beefcakes is a dinner and show venue that's in Hazeldean. And basically, their drag queens do performances. And usually after the show, you can have a chat and meet the queen if you want to. And then also very important is Rara's in Pretoria West. Also a local pub. They have a lot of drag performances and a lot of drag queens that go out there. So a shout out to ETC, to Beefcakes, as well as Rara's in Pretoria West.
Genevieve, I just want to thank you so much again for talking with us and speaking with us about your experiences, about your trauma, about drag, about a little bit of behind the scenes images in what goes into drag, for showing us your gorgeous shoes, for gifting the full drag makeover to a lucky winner of Up&Out, should they follow you on Instagram and Facebook and inbox you. And we're really, really grateful to have you, and we're so grateful for your time. So thank you so, so much. And we're just, I think, all a little bit more in awe and a little bit more appreciative of what goes into drag and being a drag queen, and that it is a journey, and that it is not just something you try for a day and stop doing, that it is a life. So thank you so much.
Yeah. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm really blessed to have you ask me to be your guest speaker. And again, my special offer to all of you, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook, and DM me on both of them or on either one. You could be the lucky winner of a full drag transformation by the one and only Genevieve Lecoq. Michaela, I want to say a very special thank you for you for hosting the meeting. I'm really grateful that we could share this, and I'm looking forward for us sharing this on all our platforms.
Thank you so, so much. We hope you have a lovely day, and yeah, happy Pride Month. And
happy Pride!
Happy Pride. So thank you so, so much.
Only a pleasure. Thank you for having me.